All right, little Lime Rock Park recap. Start off with the good. The Spintech mufflers were awesome. The car doesn't hurt my head driving anymore. Really happy with the decibel decrease, and never got black flagged at Lime Rock, so that's a new thing. That's a good start. So the mufflers did their job. Really like the longer 327 gears. I never got out of fourth. Really happy with that. That's pretty much exactly what I wanted, is to stay out of fifth gear. Torsen T2R diff feels incredible. I feel like there's less understeer and I can rotate the car much easier, both with the brake pedal and the throttle pedal. So I'm really happy on just how the car feels. Most of that, the feel, is probably due to the alignment at Elgato. Steve did an awesome job. He not only bump steered the car with the longer bump steer bolts. The issue when you go to a Coyote swap in these cars is you have to lower the steering rack because it'll hit the oil pan. When you lower the steering rack, your tie rod ends are at an upward angle. Your bump steer is off completely. So sells two different bolt length with the spacers to bring that tie rod arm down. So I had to use the longer bolts, more spacers. He bump steered the car, he aligned the car, he corner balanced the car, and he installed my new longer cups on the rear Feel 441 coilovers, which solved two problems. One, I needed to increase the rear ride height. Two, I didn't have much thread in the cup, which is not really safe. You want a decent amount of threaded body or the cartridge in the cup. So that was a win-win. Car felt incredible. Huge thanks to Steve. He's out on Long Island. I'll post a link to his shop, his handle, his website, you know. Car felt incredible, honestly. Like a completely different car. What were the other goods? The Toyo tires. Toyo RR. First time running Toyos. I like them. I was expecting more grip, honestly. But before I say that, I'm not talking bad about Toyo RRs. I was only able to get one pretty much complete session in. So I have very limited time on these Toyo RRs. Two, I'm not even sure I'm getting them hot enough yet. So there's, a lot more, let's say, experience to come on the Toyo RRs. I plan on using them this year, hopefully next year. I mean, we'll see how long they last, how gentle I am on them. That's the good. The bad is my first session out. First time running with Blue Group with Emra. Blue Group's the fast group, the advanced group. Really happy that I can say I'm even a part of Blue Group. Went out to pit lane, had everything ready to go. Temps were good. Car felt great. Went out. Immediately started seeing some smoke come from the shifter. Smoke started filling the car. Wasn't sure if I was rubbing something, if something was burning on the exhaust, if I ran over something. I don't know what happened. Started going around. Rear felt really loose. Then I realized I probably hit some oil. I didn't realize until halfway past the whole lap that I was spilling oil. And then I didn't realize how much oil I was spilling. So I pulled into pit lane, got out of the car, shut it off obviously, got out of the car. The entire front nose was covered with oil. This thing was pumping oil. It was like a swimming pool of oil under the car. It got everywhere. All over the radiator, all over the motor, the entire exhaust, under the whole entire car. There was oil everywhere. What happened was my oil cooler somehow moved, and I'm guessing put some extra stretch on one of the hoses. And my oil cooler, I just run barb fittings with fancy rubber hoses and hose clamps, and it pulled one of the oil cooler lines off. It pulled the feed coming from the oil filter into the cooler off, and it just pumped out 10 quarts of oil. We threw down some Speedy Dry. I ran into the paddock, threw down a bunch of paper towels. I felt terrible. Not only did I black flagged the entire session and screwed over everyone in that session. The marshals had to go out, the track officials clean the track, speedy dry. They shut down the whole track for, I don't know, half an hour. It was not a good way to start the day, especially being, round one in the EMRA time attack series. Not a good way to make a good, name and an impression on everyone who was there. There were so many new faces. It was an awesome time. Other than that, so we tried to do the best we could to clean up the oil. Huge thanks to Jameson and Adrian. They came out. Huge help. The car, going over stuff, tools, just awesome guys. Really appreciate their time. So we had the car towed in and got out of the car, realized what happened. I thought I broke something really bad. Luckily, it was just the oil cooler hose. So I said, listen, I got to pull the front bumper off and fix it and get some oil. So my mother went, she bought oil and rags and whatnot. I was also instructing for a guy with a Camaro, so I was trying to work on the car, but also had to hop in with him and did 2 sessions with him, which was eating me alive, because the whole time I'm like, I don't have time to do this. I need to work on my car and make at least 1 session. So while I was going out, Adrian and Jameson, they got the whole nose off the car. We're cleaning up. We're hitting the oil with brake fluid cleaner, our brake cleaner, I should say. We were just doing whatever we could. So first thing I said, all right, I need oil. I pulled the dipstick. Dipstick was dry. Yeah, pissed all the oil out. Luckily, there was still a little bit left. I don't know if there was half a quart. I don't know where the dipstick, when it goes dry, how much is in the pan. But there was still oil in the motor because it was still pouring out when I came into pit lane. So luckily, I didn't run the motor dry and ruin anything. Put 10 quarts of fresh oil in. We buttoned up the oil cooler, the hose clamps, tightened everything up. I fired up the motor, make sure all the oil circulated, checked the oil 4 or 5 times, make sure I had enough. I run 10 quarts, and I noticed the oil was pooling from that same fitting where the fitting goes into the oil cooler itself. So I said, well, let me get some white Teflon tape and I'll rethread, the fittings with Teflon tape. I installed the oil cooler 2017, 2018, and haven't really touched it since. So I guess that's a good run. Shut the motor off, grabbed an empty bottle of oil. As soon as I disconnected our line, we were able to catch the oil, save as much oil, try to minimize the mess. Pulled out the fittings, new Teflon tape. It was pretty much all gone, the Teflon tape. So there was definitely some pooling. I don't know how long it was kind of pooling, but tightened up all the fittings, tightened up the oil filter, everything oil. Checked it, double checked it, triple checked it. Then we were trying to clean off the front nose. And as you know, I boxed in the radiator with sign board. So the sign board was completely soaked in oil. It was dripping. We had it upside down. We were shaking it. We were wiping it. We were hitting it with the brake cleaner. This thing just kept dripping oil. Everything I touched, there was oil in the car. I said, we got to get it up on jack stands. Got it up on jack stands, wiped down everything. Suspension, exhaust, this car will never rust now because it's fucking coated in oil. So, long story long, I said, I don't want to go out on track and continue to drip oil everywhere. It's already slippery because of my mess. I ended up just cutting all the sign board, threw it all out. So now the radiator isn't boxed. So all that incoming air through the chin, under the car, it's going to go all over the place. It's not being forced through the radiator. So I knew she's going to run hot. I said, there goes my cooling efficiency. Boxing in the radiator is an absolute must, especially when you convert these cars to a front-end breather, front-end feeder, if you will, like I did. I don't have, when you get rid of that front air dam that sits under the radiator support, you're not scavenging that air from the ground. So I'm losing air there. Plus I got the huge air dam, so I'm not really getting any air from the bottom. I'm only getting some incoming air from the chin. So I knew she's going to run warm, but I can't really do much, Ended up catching the last session, 5 o'clock session, 5:10, 5:15, whatever time it was. Now I'm a little anxious. I'm a little worried. I can't have this happen again. I was just mentally scrambling in my mind. Should I even go out? What if this happens? I'm going to be embarrassed. All this money and oil we just spent. So there's a lot of things on my mind. So we cleaned up the windshield. We cleaned up everything, wiped it down. I said, let me get one session in, So I line up on grid. I go out last. I said, I don't want to hold anybody up. There's like oil in the tires I was rubbing down. There's all these variables. What if, you're in your head, all this stuff that people don't realize that you think about when you're on track. Everyone's like, oh, I would have went faster. I would have broke later. I would have did this. I would have did that. We're humans. There's emotions. There's what ifs. There's your questioning. Like, if I screwed up a 5-cent hose clamp, what else did I screw up? Did I torque down the bolt? Is this wrong? You all in your head. So I go out. 2-3 laps. Out last. Just want to warm up the tires. I'm riding the brakes. Warming up the tires. Warming up the brakes. I don't want to stuff this thing into a wall. Let me, get it warmed up and happy. And then I start to chase John in his Cadillac. Start to pick up the pace, 105, 103, 102. Okay, all right. I'm starting to cook with gas. And then I just started getting faster and faster. And next thing, I'm battling some Corvettes. She got up to 216 degrees water temp, so she was definitely running a lot hotter. I knew that was going to happen. But I noticed every lap I did, there was more and more and more oil being sprayed on the windshield. And with the sun glare hitting the oil on the windshield, I could barely see. So I got, 5-6 hot laps in, had a great time battling Corvettes, battling a Coyote Mustang, had a ton of fun, pulled her in, ended up running a minute flat, my new personal best, and placing second in my class. So it was a good experience. I hate to cut this short, but the GoPro's going to cut me off here in a second. But it was a wild ride, and a huge thanks to everyone who came out and supported and helped, and it was incredible. It's never a dull moment when you're on track. So that's the recap from Lime Rock.